Hi, how's everybody doing? This is our our panel, Paradiso Art and the Artist. I'm Teal. I'm the main illustrator for Paradiso fashion event, and above me is Suzanne. She's our art and marketing. What was your title officially?
I'm the art and marketing director of Paradiso. I've taken on that role since the very beginning of the event back in 2016. And Teal has been with the event for that time as well. She has always been our illustrator, producing all of the illustrated visuals that we use on postcards, on any graphical content, website content, banners, headers. If it's a picture of a pretty girl in a dress, Teal drew it.
Yes. It's really funny to hear it hear the words like back in 2016, because it feels like it just started out like so much earlier than that. I remember like talking about this like back when it was like a little baby idea with Suzanne and Kristen, and drawing up the mock-ups back in fall 2015. And I really wish that I had more art from that time to show, because like all of my files, since changing computers, I didn't have them on hand. But if you go onto the Paradiso website, you can see kind of my art for it through the years. I'm going to start out by just talking about kind of my process, like how I got into Paradiso. Oh yes, and there's a little holding image of some artwork I did for back in 2018 for Woodland Arcadia. Yeah, so my process for making the art for Paradiso has changed a lot over the years. Right now, my kind of like way of going about things, I work a lot with Suzanne on it. We kind of like do back and forth, but back in 2015, when I was working on the stuff for 2016 Paradiso, the first one, I had almost like free reign entirely for the images. Just had like a theme and a color scheme, and kind of went for it. Throughout the years, mostly I've done kind of like a pretty standard illustrator and client type of workflow, where I make a thumbnail or like work off a thumbnail, do a sketch, get the sketch approved by back then it was mostly Kristen. I was running the art by at the very beginning. And
to elaborate, Kristen is the director in general.
Yes, thank you for clarifying.
For those that don't know who Kristen is, she is the director of Paradiso.
Yes, that is a good thing to clarify. Yeah, and so Kristen and I would do a lot of that back and forth for a while, make sure we got like the mood, the sort of general theme around like this like name of Paradiso that she had she and her team had like come up with. So
yes, that theme was heavenly bodies type of thing, and I'm sure the examples. I'm sure there are examples of each.
Mm-hmm.
Each year's art, or I could pull up individual images.
Yeah, I have how about you go on my, we're not going to worry about that right now. We'll have some art up for you on one of the Paradiso social medias to give you kind of a historical tour.
I can pull them up right now. I have access to all of that. I have access to all of your files, Teal.
That's excellent because I do not, and I wish that I did, but my laptop died.
Oh, yeah. So let me pull up this one. We're jumping off the nicely constructed, pretty PowerPoint. So this is just an example of one of the pieces that Teal did. Did you do? It was about 4 or 5 postcard-sized pieces.
Yeah, I did 4 postcard-sized pieces, and then one for a tote bag that we had that year.
Oh yeah, that tote bag girl. I believe she's this lady that got used on a lot of the headers.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. She got used on a lot of the headers. And that was done, I believe, initially traditionally on pencil.
Yes, I did everything in pencil, and then I took it into digital to clean it up. And then the background is actually a watercolor wash that I did. And after everything was colored, I put it behind everything. And that, am I correct, Suzanne? Do you use that background wash still as like an overlay? I know that you
No, I used that background overlay to add like texture. For a lot of the years. I think I stopped in 2019. But like all the previous events, like that watercolor blob was on almost everything that I put out, just to give it like a painterly texture type of feel. If I needed a texture overlay, I'm like, using that right now. It's on top of everything. But yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I still really like the first year art. I feel like I've grown a lot since then. Our process has changed a lot since then. Suzanne and I have kind of developed the workflow to kind of account for changes in my life since the very first year. So I do a good bit less of the actual thumbnailing and like composition, and I kind of have Suzanne give me kind of her vision of what she's thinking for the promotional materials, and then I kind of try to work off that and like add like, you know, my touch to it, and kind of like render it out, make it really really just like nice for Suzanne to work with later. And this year actually Suzanne took over the coloring as well,
and all the backgrounds.
And the backgrounds.
So essentially, Teal's just providing me line work. Part of that is Teal's change in schedule. She has a lot of other commissions and clients and work to do, and then also I have the time and ability to take that on as well. So might as well. And then, what were you gonna say, Teal? Sorry.
Would this be a good time to switch to the next slide with kind of a comparison of our?
Oh yes, of course. So pretty much everything conceptually, I have things that I need functionally. Typically, like I need an image of a ticket. I need something to represent the OG pageant every year. So I need someone in boy style. I need some sort of picture of a ticket. And I like to have some sort of difference in style. Sometimes I'll give Teal a lot of guidance as far as what I want to see specifically. This kind of girl here, I'm like, I want someone to also kind of represent the benefits of getting a VIP ticket. So she's a little princess, and she has a golden ticket, and that was the year that we released golden tickets. So we wanted someone to be very like extra to represent that. And a lot of these girls, what they're wearing ends up being based on items in my wardrobe or Teal's wardrobe.
Yes.
Like as far as those sleeves, I know the exact meta OP, old school meta OP that Teal has that based off of.
Yes, I really like that one. So I was like, I've got to draw it.
Yeah, and then as another example, I'll pull this over for Decadence. Me and Teal have matching red and green OPs. So, I mean, that's basically our outfits. We've got matching green. I think for Woodland Arcadia, we wore matching green red OPs with aprons. So for Decadence, that's us.
Yes, decadent. Um,
And I just somebody really liked the bow crown, and that even just little details like that we'll think about what's cute and what we haven't seen before, but what people would like. And I do remember now being like, Teal, a crown, but it's a bow.
I remember thinking at first, how is that gonna work? And then I made it work, and it was fine. For 2016, or wait, for 2017 and 2018, if I'm getting the dates right, for Woodland Arcadia and also Decadence, I made the switch over to digital art. And digital art is great because it lets me be very immaculate and very detailed, but it's also terrible for both of those reasons. I probably spent the most amount of time on those 2 years making this art and just like trying to get it like just so. And it's something that I really enjoy, but unfortunately, that's it also kind of sparks the perfectionist in me. So I kind of went back this year for 2020 to get like more of like a natural line art feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Someone I'll talk about like my art inspirations a little bit later, but kind of I like to use like traditional ink to kind of like channel like an Ai Yazawa sort of feel. She wrote Nana and Paradise Kiss and is one of my Lolita.
Oh, is that her?
No, that is actually another manga that I really liked. It was really influential to me as a youngin. This is actually the beginning of my like Lolita fashion journey.
Okay,
I was reading.
then I'll back up a little bit if you wanted to get into that later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you have more things that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, you mentioned about your process. Like here, we have 2017. Teal is still scanning in penciled line work, and then there's a change in quality to something like here, where the line work is very, very controlled, very, very smooth, very, very even, all digital. This is from 2018. And I could definitely tell that this took a lot longer because nagging Teal for updates produced little. But I definitely feel you about the digital art. Control Z is a bit of a drug. And you could just do that endlessly. Just hit those keys endlessly until you get the perfect line. And then you found out you're drawing nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So if anybody's out there who wants to learn how to make a lot of ruffles and a lot of details, I'd recommend first getting really into traditional art. It's a lot less strain on your eyes, and it allows you to move on and in the end produce a lot more work as you kind of come into your own.
Yes, I've known Teal much longer than our work together with Paradiso. We were roommates in college, and we both went to the Kansas City Art Institute. And I remember the very first kind of big sketch in her sketchbook that I remember is a picture of like a guinea pig in a Rococo dress, which was the conclusion to a short romance comic between a guinea pig and a potato. Um, and I was like, damn, those ruffles. Teal's always been the ruffle queen.
I learned how to draw. Well, I keep on trying to go into my backstory, but this is we're beginning with
your backstory, Teal.
Yes, that's true. Shoot, I had a outline written and everything, and now I'm just riffing.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like critique at art school.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, that's a good point to just go into your backstory, and we can go to this next slide and your kind of your influences. Because you've been into Lolita much longer than I have, and if you're the one that helped me get into it, so I blame you, Teal.
Thank you. If anybody else wants ideas for expensive hobbies, let me know. I was into Lolita fashion since I think this was in 7th grade that I started reading the manga Ultramaniac. I got it from Barnes and Noble. It's written by Wataru Yoshizumi, and it's just like a pretty standard shoujo. But like this was like a little tiny illustration in like the back of like one of the manga volumes, and I saw it, and like there's a little description by the author of like this is Mina in Gothic Lolita fashion, and I was like, that's the pinnacle of clothing. That's what all clothes should be like. So I kind of started really like in like 2000 like 6 or whenever I saw this, it wasn't really common to like, especially for like a youngin to like really know how to navigate like online or like find any of this stuff like on the internet. So I would just kind of go to like Barnes and Noble half price books and like just see like books and like try to like find like manga and like try to watch anime with characters who wore things that look like this. So I got really into Arina Tanemura's work. I got really into Ayazawa's work. She again uh, wrote a lot of things like kind of centralizing around the Harajuku scene during that time. So and I also drew a lot of it since I couldn't really get my hands on the actual clothes to wear them. I tried. They don't have them in many thrift stores. But yeah, in this next image is like some very early art.
We'll switch that, Teal. Get ready.
So here's like one of my very early high school artworks of some characters that I had back in the day. Obviously, very like Lolita inspired. Got all the lace in there. I learned how to draw lace from a Chobits wall scroll that I had. I looked at it a lot, and yeah, I just kind of like drew what I wanted to see and what I wanted to wear. I did that through college. I was too broke to actually participate, but I got to hang out and like get like tips and like get a lot of information and education about this style through college from Suzanne and Kristen and a lot of others in like the KC Lolita community. So even though I only had like a couple of like very sweet style bodyline skirts and a blouse, it and finding the right shoes if you're not actually shopping online for Lolita stuff is impossible. Yeah, all of that just kind of helped me like get really good at drawing the things that I wanted to wear, and get really into like trying to portray like other people's styles and get excited about making stuff that's cute.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah. Bit of an aside, but it was Teal that originally showed me the Mary Magdalene website, and it's all her fault. After that.
I remember going on that website so much, looking,
and not understanding what yen meant.
I'm just like, dang, that's expensive.
Sure. And I suppose we can kind of go through and put up the art and some examples of how the style has changed each year, and then also how the assets that Teal creates have been used as well. So we did talk a little bit about 2016 here. We had more art than this. That's the only one that I threw in this Google Drive, though. But though I do have more, I have so much Teal art. It's cute.
This is also a good example of something you were talking about earlier, Suzanne, when we were chatting about how, you know, when making the Paradiso art, both you and I are really passionate about trying to depict a lot of different kinds of girls, like a lot of girls who are like, you know, have like different body types and different skin tones, different styles of dressing. And like we want it to be something that is very very like diverse and centered around like inclusion for anyone who is interested in like Lolita or JFashion in general.
Yeah, that's definitely been part of our ethos since the very beginning, is different skin tones, different hair types, as well as different Lolita styles, of course. And then trying to broaden into, especially with the OG pageant, boy styles as well. And definitely avoiding just simple tokenism of like, oh, we have one brown person and one illustration. Our work here is done. So we definitely want to have people who all look different from each other, who have different hair, curly hair, straighter hair, and for them to all be cute, and in this instance, fly around together.
Yes. That's what fashion is about. It's about gravity no longer applying.
Yeah, certainly with the first Paradiso, the Heavenly Bodies theme. And I think that's also represented in, and I don't have the original here, but Teal did a promo illustration for the Tea Party. And I like the chaos here. This is for 2017. Again, she's still using pencil. We went with a darker theme because it was the Eternal Reverie, but still multiple Lolita styles are represented, along with these cute little animal things, which showed up in that year's art. And I think in her hair as well, for 2017's art.
Yes. I still am kind of perplexed about why I insisted about including those little characters. I think I just saw some art that had something very similar, and I wanted to give it a go. Especially with a darker theme, I wanted something that was kind of like a little bit whimsical, but like just like weird enough so that it could be like unnerving. But yes, something I really like from that year is just like all the details and kind of how it looks like a little bit of a children's book illustration.
Yeah, to me it looks sepia, like a faded photograph. And that's 2017 style. Personally, I would have to say that next year, after that, would be my favorite as far as Teal art content is concerned, because for me, I got Teal to work in a bigger file size. So all of her prints with this time were nice and big. They were 11 by 17. And that a layout like this leaves a lot of space and a lot of assets for me to condense and expand and fit type and fit information with and without. But it's detailed enough because it's digital. I can create something that is a little more zoomed in, like this banner that shortens it up and condenses it, but expanded, it still looks good as a print. And we did offer these for sale every year. That's typically what we have done is make postcards and prints also available of all of this stuff, but exclusive to that year only. And here as well, oh yeah, this is the same thing we're looking at earlier in the PowerPoint. There is a lot of just textures and patterns and backgrounds, which is what I really like from a graphic designer perspective, but it still stands on its own without having to have text on it. So it can be enjoyed both as a print, but then to be used as assets for making posts with, for branding each event and each season. Or each year's theme. So good job, Teal.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's definitely a big challenge when you get into something that you love and drawing something that you've always like had a passion for. It's always a little bit of an adjustment period to get really into like the mode of like, all right, now I have to produce like a final product like for this purpose. Especially when you're working with graphic design, that's very much about like solving, like having like visual communication also be kind of a priority. So it's been a lot of kind of like refining. The earlier stuff has a lot of like texture and is like a little bit more like messy and a little more flat. And so as like I've been going, I think I've been feeling everything get like a little bit more clean and a little bit more kind of like easy to like divide and put into like the context of a promotional piece for the event.
Mm-hmm. As far as it's just something specific I noted about this piece, thinking about these things bring up the memories of the conversations that we have back and forth. Mm-hmm. I remember this was for a Woodland Arcadia, the 2018 event, and we were both talking about how we had never seen like Mori OG or like any sort of like Dolly K boy style version, like any masculine versions of those type of softer cardigan-like styles. And so Teal came up with this this woodland OG boy who could go on a hike, but also be in the pageant.
Mm-hmm. And this kind of also goes with kind of my journey in college too with Lolita fashion. You know, once again, I was a little bit like, you know, not entirely like financially able to like acquire all of the Lolita fashion that I wanted. I didn't really have like a style yet either because it was just like there's so much out there and like you got to really like kind of like wade through it and like get really familiar with everything before you decide like kind of what your main body of wardrobe was going to be. So I got really into Mori K since it was you know, I have always like been really into like the environment and like thrifting and the idea of kind of like reducing and reusing. And I just really love the idea of being able to kind of just like look around like within like my own like neighborhood and like kind of make things that are available at like a lower cost into something that can still be applicable in JFashion. So my love for Mori and my love for Lolita are always kind of married together. And Woodland Arcadia was a great place to kind of explore that.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Let me see. Oh yeah. Here's just another example of something with pattern and space. Even little assets like this lace up here ended up getting like reused as a border or as a way to create a blank space endlessly. I remember using this lace pattern a lot. And then it gets rearranged into a header like this. As an aside, we went with kind of this font and style for like the first Paradiso, and it worked. But then for continue to call it Paradiso, it has to look the same. So every single year when I come up with the theme, I'm like, oh yeah, let's do this. And then I'm like, oh great, I got to find a secondary font that looks like this other font and also matches the theme. So it's like hours of like scrolling along like the font and being like, because I mean, like generally graphic design, you want to like pair a simpler font with more complex fonts, like pairing both a script or a cursive font with another cursive font becomes really hard to read. So finding a font that is both thematic but also not fighting with our main logo has always just been a big struggle, and I hope I do okay. Like the Eternal Reverie here, that was something a little simpler but had slight sharp parts to kind of represent it was more goth. So I think that one turned out all right, without being too looking like like diploma font on Microsoft Word, that kind of like, oh, I'm making something Gothic. I'm gonna use the diploma font. And then Decadence as well has to look good with the logo or title, but represent the theme. So that's something more what I'm doing. Oh, that's from 2017. I like that one.
Yeah, I think that this is probably my favorite one from 2017. I just really love the repeating frame, and I like the little guy. Also, like the way that I shaded her skirt. I'm just like, I need to get more into that. I think that's
something in which has just happened is that most of the people that you draw for our art don't wear any prints. That makes sense because drawing like a two-dimensional surface on rippled fabric is like an extra level of pain. And I didn't mind it too much because I personally, with again, a lot of these end up being based on pieces that both me and Teal have either had personal experience with or own ourselves. Neither of us are super big into prints. So I think this and one other is like the only two examples of a girl actually wearing a print. Hard.
Yeah, the main girl actually in our 2020 illustration, who is doing ballet, she actually has a print, and I actually kind of had a different process with drawing that print. It was really cool.
The one that she's talking about, she also, the ballerina also has a print as well, but that was done since, even though this is a much more traditional route than we've gone previously, Teal's going to go into how we applied the print.
Yes. Yeah, the print itself was really interesting because it like looks all like warped in there. Someone who's familiar with Photoshop or digital art might be able to tell pretty easily, but I tried out something new, which is drawing the print flat and then kind of molding it with like the skew tool into the shape of the skirt. So it looks a lot rounder, and it like kind of conforms to the shape. I'm really excited about that, and I want to use it more because I think that it's just like really fun and cool. But I think that there's a lot to learn. So
okay, but like
future thing
about like, and this is just like, I guess random Photoshop tutorial time. So it was essentially like, yeah, you can draw the print flat and then using editing tools warp it and skew it into the shape that looks good on the dress. But what really makes this a lot easier to do is turning it into a smart object first and then applying it and warping it, because you can then open up the smart object as it almost opens up as a separate file and maintains the original unaltered art. And that can hold its own separate set of layers. So if you don't like the way the print looks after you've already warped it, you don't have to draw a new flat panel or edit it and re-skew it. You literally just open up the smart object and can paint directly on it. While in the main Photoshop thing, it's represented. I don't know if I'm describing it super well, but like, go look up smart objects in Photoshop. That's kind of the best way to do it.
This has been a plug for smart objects
In Photoshop.
Another thing that's really interesting about our workflow, me and Suzanne's, is that I mainly work in Clip Studio Paint. And that, luckily, like every drawing software, has like the option to export in Photoshop. But I always think it's kind of an interesting like layer of dissonance between how we do things.
Yeah, I work as a graphic designer full time, so I have access to Adobe Creative Suite, whereas so I get like literally the whole kit and caboodle from my work. Whereas I think the full suite is something ridiculous, like $100, $60 a year. I don't even know because I don't pay for it.
Yeah, for Photoshop, for like Adobe Creative Cloud,
yeah,
is like 500 something a year.
Yeah. And so Teal doesn't have $500 a year. So using something that like Clip Studio Paint, it goes with their work style, but also like might as well get used to something that doesn't cost $500 a year.
Yes. And Clip Studio is great because it has like vector drawing, and actually for Woodland Arcadia, that was the first year that I worked in Clip Studio, and I was actually part of the reason everything took so long was because I was obsessed with the idea of making like the 3D models and the poses, and then trying to draw over those. So that added an extra layer in the process. Actually,
I didn't know that. I didn't know you used 3D models.
Yeah, I think that it is a skill in and of itself to be able to use 3D models for reference, and still kind of like get like a naturalistic look. But if I'm glad that it's not completely obvious, my style still held together well enough.
Yeah, for sure. And this is an example of all of the prints that Teal produced for 2017.
Mm-hmm.
I would say personally, my actual favorite is the girl eating the strawberry.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too.
Yeah, she's my favorite. And I remember even those small details, I remember like Teal, I would really like to see somebody with curly hair that's really long.
Yes.
And Teal's like, yes, her hair will be everywhere. And then we can see the origin of bird as hair accessory, which continues in the prima donna enamel pins. The prima donna, is also wearing a bird. And then that's one's a good example of how I end up breaking up all of the assets, because Teal gives me the layered Photoshop files, which really, really helps.
It's a pain to transfer them on Google Drive.
It's a huge pain. Actually, and there's a little trick that Teal learned to help kind of you put like a layer of flat color on top of it. Yes. So explain that trick.
All right. So basically, for some reason, like it makes the file size like way bigger if it has to like generate a thumbnail for the image preview. So if you have a solid layer of color over Photoshop, over the Photoshop like image, and then send it as layers, then Suzanne or whoever you're sending it to can just open up the Photoshop file. It uploads and downloads a lot faster, and then just hide the layer with the color, and then you get a fun surprise, which is a full illustration underneath.
It's like wrapping a gift.
Yes, exactly. Before I see that we're about we have about 15 minutes left. So I'm just going to say that the one other challenge of doing digital art and providing assets is knowing which things to flatten so that you can reasonably send an 11 by 17 file over the internet to someone so that they can use it in full resolution and divide it all up. That has also been a really interesting and unpredicted skill that I gained from working on this.
Yeah, for sure. And we managed to get things worked out pretty well. So like that bird head girl, she gets broken up and incorporated into the Facebook, this Facebook filter, or we release Snapchat filters and Facebook filters every year for people to use at the event, but also to drum up hype. This is just an example of like a Snapchat filter using Teal's art from Woodland Arcadia. So just essentially endlessly reusing all of these assets in new ways is always a challenge. Because and so I suppose for the last part, we can kind of open up to questions.
I hope so.
One of the chat moderators was supposed to provide me some of the questions that she was seeing in the stream. Oh, here we go. Let's see. So someone's asked, here's a couple of questions. There's a question of, will any prints of Golden Ticket Girl be available? Yeah, for Decadence, for Decadence, we didn't sell too many prints of those. And we try to keep the prints release exclusive to that year. But seeing as how each year grows and some people look at old art and be like, oh man, I couldn't make it this year, or I didn't know about Paradiso. That's kind of a conversation that's been brewing about re-releasing some of this art in some capacity. So that's definitely something we're considering. And then here's another one. How long does a finished piece normally take to complete? That's up to Teal, and I think that really depends year by year.
Yeah, so like I was saying, with like digital art, sometimes it would just take me like, days and days. And in between that, I think that for 2019's Paradiso art, so in like kind of like fall, winter 2018, I was working full time as well as on these illustrations, so it took a lot longer in between, and with kind of the all of like the tweaking that was going on.
I guess if you could just isolate it down to, did it take you 10 hours, 20 hours,
yeah,
40 hours?
Yeah, I think that total, like sitting down and working on it, time for each illustration, it can take like up to like 20 or 30 hours, just like,
For each illustration?
Yeah, like start to finish, like, getting things thumbed out, like revising for every change, and really getting those details in there. I can't tell you how many times I've like sat down and been like, I'm gonna work on this for 5 hours today, and then I'm like, wow, I'm not quite done after 5 hours. But that's a really high detail piece, like the spoon and fork girl. I think that the quickest one that I've done is probably the prima donna, the ballerina illustration from this year.
There's the ballerina, but there's also the collaboration pins that we did with Pubifel.
Yeah.
Oh. So is it the ballerina or is it the pins?
The ballerina.
Ballerina. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because you just gave me the line work and then I went ahead and colored it digitally. I did digitally color it, but I had like some textured brush packs to make it look like it's done in charcoal. Because as an artist myself, in what free time I have, I typically work with charcoal. I even attempted to like shade it in charcoal. I actually have access to a high, like a big printer, and I like attempted to print out the line work big and draw it over with, but that was a mess. So I just did it digitally. And all those backgrounds are scanned charcoal stuff. Let me see. Let me pull up those pins, actually. Whoops.
So a clean answer to the last question is it usually takes from a range of about 8 hours to like 20 hours.
Mm-hmm. And then there's someone who's asking about the artwork done for Avalon. Some background on that. Avalon was the very first crown prince of the Midwest Oji-sama pageant in 2017. That was the inaugural event for the Midwest Oji-sama pageant. Avalon has also returned as a guest judge for many events following that. Avalon does sort of a shironuri, if that's how it's pronounced, a shironuri makeup look with their Oji. And let me pull up that illustration because Teal did a, Alexis, if you could, yeah, Teal did, after they won, Teal did an illustration of Avalon's winning outfit. As cute as hell.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. What was the question asking about that, or did they just want to see it?
Yeah, they just wanted us to show and talk a little bit about the artwork for Avalon and provide a little bit of background for that. And also, the previous, we haven't consistently based the next year's OG art off last year's pageant winner, but certainly this art is obviously Avalon's depiction, but we definitely did for this based it off of the previous winners. So if I can, let me actually pull up the image of these actual human beings, whom they are. These beautiful human beings. Because I have a photo of them. Here they are. This was, I don't currently have a photo of the actual outfits that they wore, but over here on the left, this was the Crown Prince of Midwest Oji-sama 2019, and this was their princess. And they performed a dance in the little theater, and we were all very entranced. And of course, they won. So we decided to base this year's OG art off of the two. Obviously, this isn't the outfit that they wore because we wanted to have them wear clothes that represent the theme Symphonia. So I came to with Teal the idea of like doing a cute little band director or like marching band director OG, which is something I haven't necessarily seen. And then I wanted a combination of like a marching band hat and a crown. I think it turned out pretty good. When I was coloring this, I wanted to make things transparent and flowy. Mm-hmm. So I painted in all of those transparencies. Mm-hmm. And do we have any more questions? Well, if there's not, I could just talk endlessly about art.
All right.
We only have a few minutes left, so if there's anything you want to wrap up or summarize your experience with Paradiso as a whole. Oh, someone asked who has round glasses first. I wear these because they look cute and they cover my eye bags. Teal actually needs glasses.
Yeah, I'm the nerd. I actually have to wear glasses. I haven't found anything prescription that's like large enough to compare to Suzanne's current look, but I'm still trying. Anybody has any prescription glasses recommendations for oversized lenses? Let me know.
Yeah, Teal just wants to be Anthe from Utena. Yeah, she didn't mention it, but that's another big style reference. I suppose we could also wrap up with we could talk about the subtle or not so subtle LGBT themes in all of the artworks. Mm-hmm. So here we have, we wanted definitely, even though like the boy style people who are wearing boy style to not necessarily represent, this is for the guys or the man. So pretty much anyone who's wearing boy style in those depictions is very gender neutral. Mm-hmm. very ambiguous, and it's so everyone can kind of see themselves wearing OG, because even though OG is boy style, it's not for any particular kind of person. A lot of people, especially who want to enter the pageant, are worried like, oh, do I need to actually be a boy to be in the pageant? And that doesn't matter. I think most of the people who actually participate are women or don't identify as men. Let me pull up a picture. Well, in the meantime, we can pull up. So you can talk a little bit about sort of the kind of sapphic themes that you put in your own art and your own kind of journey with that as well. That's a little more personal, but certainly that motif of these women interacting has that. Here's another depiction of an OG. That everybody could see themselves in stylistically. And then where's another one? Okay, here's the gayest one. Sorry, let me pull up the actual. I wanted to pull up the actual print. I think that's one. They all actually have titles. This one is called Secret Wedding. But anyway, if you wanted to elaborate on that, you're welcome to.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a big part of the basis of me being into Lolita fashion as like a middle schooler was like this kind of like thought of like, wow, I want to look at pretty girls. I want to look at girls wearing like clothing that's like really beautiful. And for a while, I thought that like this meant that I kind of had to take on like a little bit more of an OG persona. I like really experimented with that style a lot more in like high school and like earlier in college. But yeah, I think that like putting it into my artwork is just like a nice form of self-expression. And like, you know, even if you aren't part of like the LGBT community, I think that it's really like a cool event that's about like women celebrating like each other and like women celebrating like their voice that like doesn't have to like cater to the male gaze. Kind of like the original thesis behind Lolita fashion was that we need like something to wear that's like very expressive but like doesn't have to be like explicitly like attractive by like, you know, like normal like or well, quote unquote normal like heteronormative, like I'm trying to find like a husband, so I got to be pretty sort of standards.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Women are the ones drawn to the fashion, of course, but people of all genders, of course, participate in, and it's always been open to people who want to defy those expectations. We always point to Mana, certainly being just a cis man who is, I think, also just married, wearing it and being such a huge influencer, so that inherently with its origins sort of open up the fashion as a space for people of all sorts of genders and sexualities. But you, Teal, being a lesbian, definitely put that woo-la-woo energy, which I definitely appreciate. And it's also, I reflect that same sentiment in what I like about Lolita fashion is something that's outside the male gaze. So women dancing, women courting, but neutral enough that I think other people can see themselves in, maybe people who don't identify as women, but maybe just look like this can still see themselves in.
Yes, and yeah, it's really just a fun time. I like that Lolita fashion like kind of transcends gender and doesn't make itself like only available to like, you know, people who like identify a certain way. Like you can be anyone and wear that big Philly dress. You can be anyone and wear those pumpkin pants. But we're always gonna say, hey, come to Paradiso.
Yeah, and definitely a little peek behind the curtain. We like me and Teal definitely and a death of the author, like they don't have to all be lesbians, you know, if you feel like, but like we definitely call all these women lesbians. Like, oh, this year, flying lesbians. This year, chocolate lesbians. as in the theme being chocolate and everyone eats chocolate, with decadence.
Yeah.
So
I think that there was one more question that asked what this OG pageant theme is, and what is the OG pageant theme?
Oh, well,
Or do we
I catch that question? I'm sorry.
Huh?
The question about the OG pageant?
Yeah. I see that that there was a question about this year's OG pageant theme.
Oh, well, the OG pageant always matches the overarching theme. So 2020's theme is Symphonia. Symphonia is sort of an elegant realm of song and style. So it's not required, but definitely participants and attendees dress to match the theme. So we try and make sure the theme can represent multiple styles. And so people who participate in the pageant also oftentimes dress to match the theme. We got a lot of really interesting woodland type themed looks for the 2018 pageant, and some very like dark and royal and brocade fabrics for the 2019 pageant. Photos for that are, of course, on Facebook and Instagram. You want to scroll through and see pageant participants and whatnot. But also the winner was someone who was a sweet OG. So decadence can represent that sweetness as well. And so with Symphonia, and we'll definitely learn more about what the pageant may entail with our later OG pageant discussion with Paradiso. But as far as like art wise, we wanted our OGs, this OG here, to dress to match the theme. I would be absolutely delighted if someone wore this exact outfit in real life. They'd certainly have my vote.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think any artist would be like just over the moon to see their own designs kind of like come to life as something that someone wears. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't mind that at all. Also, I notice, I know that we're kind of out of time, but I noticed that once again we have some floating figures. This kind of reminds me of year one, sort of like the background being very cloudy and colorful. So that's kind of a fun little tie back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I believe this was this panel was supposed to go to for about an hour, so it is around at least 5 p.m. Eastern time. I mean, Kansas City, it's 4 p.m. So if there's not any other final questions, we can kind of wrap this up and thank everybody for listening to us talk about all these flying lesbians, and Teal's art and process and background. You can find Teal's artwork at her own personal website, www.tealsather.com. She also has a delightful Twitter presence, Patreon presence, and are you on Instagram?
I am on Instagram. It's
just yeah.
Sather. It's pretty much my name all the way down. I also am planning to launch a EGL, like JFashion specific page in the future. So I will probably be most active about that on Twitter. So stay tuned for that.
Mm-hmm. Because I work full time, I generally work for other people and don't have a lot of time for my personal art, but some of my art is on my Instagram at sraenelson, SRAENELSON, and then also sraenelson.com, SRAENELSON.com. But I don't update that, and the art style is very, very, very different from this. It's mostly horror art.
Check it out.
Sure. But we're here for you, Teal. We're here to promote you. So thank you all so much for your kind words and your comments and your questions and your interest in what Teal has to create for us. I But I love being able to still stay in touch with you, Teal, despite you moving out to Minnesota. And this project is a great way to connect and reconnect with people. Teal always comes down in person every year, so you can always meet Teal and gush about her art in person at the event.
Yeah, I would love to see all of you. Thanks for tuning in. I hope everyone's staying well, and um, yeah.
All right. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much.
Bye.